Translation. O my Lord Nrsingadev, by engaging in your transcendental loving service in the association of devotees who are liberated souls, hamsas, I shall become completely uncontaminated by the association of the free modes of material nature, and be able to chant the glories of your Lordship, who are so dear to me. I shall chant your glories following exactly in the footsteps of Lord Brahma and his disciplic succession. In this way, I shall undoubtedly be able to cross the ocean of nescience. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A devotee's life and duty are very well explained herein. As soon as a devotee can chant the holy name and glories of the Supreme Lord, he certainly becomes to the liberated position. Attachment for glorifying the Lord by hearing and chanting the holy names and activities of the Lord, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, certainly brings one to the position where material contamination is absent. One should chant the bona fide songs received from the disciplic succession. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that the chanting is powerful when one follows the disciplic succession. Evam parampara praptam imam rajaso vidu. Manufacturing many ways of chanting will never be effective. However, chanting the songs or the narrations left by the previous acharyas, Mahajano yena gata sa pataha, is extremely effective, and this process is very easy. Therefore, in this verse, Prahlad Maharaj uses the word anja, easily. Accepting the faults of exalted authorities through disciplic succession is certainly much easier than the method of mental speculation, by which one tries to invent some means to understand the absolute truth. The best process is to accept the instructions of the previous acharyas and follow them. Then God realization and self-realization becomes extremely easy. By following this easy method, one is liberated from the contamination of the material modes of nature, and thus one can certainly cross the ocean of nescience, in which there are many miserable conditions. By following in the footsteps of the great acharyas, one associates with the hamsas or paramahamsas, those who are completely freed from material contamination. Indeed, by following the instructions of the acharyas, one is always freed from all material contamination, and thus one's life becomes successful, for one reaches the goal of life. This material world is miserable, regardless of one's standard of life. Of this there is no doubt. Attempts to mitigate the miseries of material existence by material methods will never be successful. One must take to Krishna consciousness to become really happy. Otherwise, happiness is impossible. One might say that becoming advanced in spiritual life also involves tapasya, voluntary acceptance of some inconveniences. However, such inconvenience is not as dangerous as material attempts to mitigate all miseries. So this verse today has a very interesting, profound formula by which one can be relieved of material contamination and cross the ocean of material existence and return home back to Godhead. Material existence is something that we should not take too much for granted. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that this material energy of mine is a divine energy, and very difficult to overcome it. Just to highlight this situation that we're in, being within the material existence, nowadays you can go to a paint shop and you can ask for various different kinds of colors. They have this system where they can inject different colors into a container and then spin it around, and hey presto, you've got your color. The free modes of material nature, we could say that there are free colors. So those free colors, if you take each color and then mix it with the other two colors, then you get 9 varieties of colors. Then if you take those 9 colors and mix it with each of those 9 colors and mix it with the other 8 colors, then you get 81 varieties of colors. So it's explained, Prabhupada explains it like this in one of his purports in the Bhagavad Gita, that the free modes of material nature are just like that. That there are various modes, in each conditioned soul has a body tailor-made to suit his particular desire to enjoy the material world. And that's how complex the free modes of material nature are. It's also explained that the free modes, because guna means rope. In fact, we can give the same example for the rope too, because nowadays you can purchase very, very, very strong rope. It's not just free different ropes intertwined, but there are quite many ropes intertwined with each other to make it very, very strong. But guna means rope, and this rope is tied to us. You can imagine what it's like being tied with your hands and your feet and perhaps around your arms, and you're like this. And you can probably put a noose around your neck to add to that. It is a very peculiar situation. And in that situation, somehow you've got to get out of the material world. And another problem is that every sinful activity that you perform, then a knot is tied on that same rope. And the Bhagavad Gita is also explained like that, even just by eating. If you're not eating prasadam, if it's not something that's offered to the Lord, then you're verily eating only sin. So every morsel of food that the non-devotee puts into his mouth creates another knot and tied very tightly. So then the question is, how are these knots going to be untied? How are we going to be released from this precarious situation? It's not possible to do it yourself. Because the other point is that when we're overpowered like that, the free modes of material nature, the material existence, they have two main potencies. One potency is that it covers the identity of the soul. The other potency is that it bewilders and confuses the intelligence and the mind. So that is even more precarious. So needless to say, as Krishna says, we're sitting on the machine of material energy. We're not able to do it ourselves. We're not able to release ourselves from the material energy. Therefore, it is suggested here in this verse that we find someone who is free. Someone who's freed from that bondage. Someone, as I say, if you talk of blindness, if you say he is blind, then there must be someone who is not blind. There must be someone somewhere who has eyes to see. So in the same way, when we talk about bondage, it is not that everyone is in bondage. There must be someone who's not in bondage. And that is the someone that we need to take shelter of. It's explained in this verse that the pure devotees, they have the ability to do that. They're beyond the influence of the material nature. They see the difference between matter and spirit. They make no distinctions between honor and dishonor, fame, infamy, happiness, distress. They are seeing equally a piece of earth, a stone, a piece of gold, and they are completely freed from material influences. So such persons can help us be released. In the instructions by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami, he explains the constitutional position of the living entity. Jivera Svarup Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das, that our constitutional position is that we are eternally parts and parcels of Krishna. And once Prabhupada was on a morning walk. This was in Germany, in Hamburg. As he was walking along the harbor, he noticed one very big ship which was being pulled by a very small tug. This is the way in which they bring the big ships into harbor. So, they turn off the engines and then they drag it in to the dry dock to be repaired. So Prabhupada pointed to this scenario and he asked, what does this mean? And of course we couldn't really answer that. We were wondering what Prabhupada was actually even asking. But anyway, one devotee said, well, it's a big ship, Prabhupada, and it's being pulled by a tug. And Prabhupada said, yes, I understand that, but what does it mean? and there was silence. And suddenly Prabhupada said, "This is a Maya." He explained that the constitutional position of the living entity is, he explained that the ship, the power of the ship is very powerful, but is being dragged by a little ship. Its power has been taken away and is being dragged by something inferior. He explained in the same way that a living entity, the spirit soul, is very, very powerful. In fact, he even went as far to say is that we're as good as Krishna. We're like little Krishnas. Of course, one in the sense that we are qualitatively the same. Quantitatively, of course, there's a difference, but qualitatively, Prabhupada explained that just like gold, the gold mine and a particle of gold outside the mine, they're one and the same in quality. The gold mine and the piece of gold are exactly the same in quality. So he explained that actually the power of the soul is very, very powerful, but when it comes under the influence of material energy, then we lose our spiritual power and are overcome by Maya. One time a disciple said to Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, you speak so nicely about Krishna. You speak so nicely about Krishna." And Prabhupada turned around to this devotee and he said, "I speak or you speak, Krishna is sweet." In other words, Prabhupada was not going to allow us to be frivolous in the sense that, we have a pure devotee in our midst, therefore we'll just let him do everything. He will be able to deliver us. Of course, in one sense, that is the process which is being explained here, but Prabhupada also wanted us to make the effort ourselves, because by making the effort ourselves, then naturally the spiritual master will see whether you're eligible for liberation or not. So he said, sweet meat is sweet, whether you eat it or I eat it. Sweet meat is sweet. So therefore, every so often he would do that. He would suddenly say to a disciple, after being asked the question, "You answer this," and then the disciple would have to answer. So he explained that as soon as you say something in connection with Krishna, as soon as you chant Hare Krishna or speak about Krishna, then immediately you come up onto that liberated platform. Of course, there's liberation and there's liberation. From day one, we can say that we suddenly become liberated. And, as I just explained, there is truth in that. If we have seen sometimes people coming in to join the temple and they don't look very good. Their consciousness is very deep down, low, and they're not very emotionally and physically inspired. But within a few days of taking up the process, which is given to us by the acharyas, then something very mystical happens. that within a matter of weeks that person then suddenly becomes jubilant. When it comes to the Holy Dham, it's within a matter of a few days. The Holy Dham is, Rupa Goswami explains in his Nectar of Devotion that one of the most important activities for a devotee is to regularly, there are many, of course, many activities which are beneficial, but one of the most beneficial activities is going to the Holy Dham, because the Holy Dham is pure, transcendental from the influence of this material world. And being in contact with the Holy Dham, we immediately attain relief from our miseries. So, so in the same way that when we see someone leaving Krishna consciousness after being very jubilant, they leave Krishna consciousness for one reason or another, and then we see them again after 2 weeks, and again we see the dramatic change in the opposite direction. So this indicates very profoundly the paramount importance of associating with the devotees and following the practices of the previous acharyas. And as long as we're connected with that, then we're insulated and protected. And as soon as we take a distance, then immediately that insulation and protection is taken away. And Prabhupada explains that in that circumstance we go right back to where we came before coming to Krishna consciousness. So, there was a sage once who wanted to give benedictions to different persons. So to a prince, he blessed him. This prince, he was enjoying sense gratification. He blessed him, you live forever, because if you die, you will become a monkey or a pig or a dog. So live forever. That was his blessing. To a sadhu, or to a sadhu or a saintly person, not a sadhu, a saintly person who was following regulative principles of the Vedas, he blessed him. You die right now. Leave right now. Because you're in a very favorable situation, and in that favorable situation you can then, in your next life, continue on. To a sadhu and a devotee, he blessed, you can choose. You can live or you can die. It doesn't matter. It's the same for you. Whether you live or die, it's the same, because while you're living, you're performing devotional service, and you're on the liberated platform. And if you leave this world, you will go to a liberated position and continue. So live or die, you can choose. And then to a butcher who was obviously misusing his human existence and performing such abominable activities that in his next life he will incur such pain and suffering. He told him, he blessed him, don't live, don't die. Don't live, no, don't die, don't live. Don't die because you will suffer so much if you do die. in your next life. Don't live, because if you live, well, you're just going to continue carrying on these abominable activities that you're doing and being further intertwined into the network of illusion. So we can understand from these different blessings that for a devotee, we don't actually need to be so concerned with where we are. Probably sometimes devotees, they get a little bit confused, especially grihastas. They sometimes get a little confused about what they should do each day in regards to maintaining themselves. I have a family, I need to maintain them, but at the same time, I don't want to associate with non-devotees, and most jobs outside means that some degree of association with non-devotees is there. So in the 18th chapter, there's several verses where Krishna is explaining that we should not give up sacrifice, penances, or charity, that we should do them as a matter of duty. And in one of his purports in these verses, he explains that for a devotee who actually follows the 4 regulative principles and chants his 16 rounds, providing he does that each day, then whether he's working in a factory where there's hundreds of non-devotees around him, he is not affected. He's not affected by the work. He's not affected by the persons around him. He's just simply doing his duty, and the result of that duty, of course, he can then maintain his family within Krishna consciousness. So this is an interesting point. There's nowhere or nothing that a devotee cannot do. In every situation for a devotee, it's all auspicious. There's nothing inauspicious in the life of a devotee. Prabhupada gives also that example of the lotus flower. The lotus flower is within the water, but it's not touched by the water. So the devotee is within the material world, but he doesn't have anything to do with it, provided that he's nicely situated. Jesus Christ himself would say these same points. You live in the world. It's not that we try to separate ourselves from the world, but live in it, but don't live of it. Don't try to enjoy it for yourself. So this is the state of liberation. Devotional service is non-different than Krishna. It is a sat activity, eternal activity. And all the aspects of devotional service are the same. Whether it's chanting the holy name, whether it's reciting or hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, whether it's worshipping the deity, whether it's taking prasadam, whether it's going out and distributing the message of Krishna consciousness. These are all sat activities, and therefore we have this protection. We have this protection, even though not ordinarily there would be a reason to be concerned. In fact, one time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he asked Prabhupada, I told this point to Mother Kalangana and she got very inspired. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he confronted Prabhupada on this issue that, your disciples, we're going out every day to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya, to try to reclaim the fallen souls. Isn't there a danger that at the time of death we will not remember Krishna because of the association around us? So Prabhupada was very fervent on the point that you take that chance for Krishna, because even if at the time of death there will be some difficulty, you will not remember Krishna. In the Sri Ishopanishad it also mentions in the last verse that we should ask Krishna to deliver us. Ask him, do you remember what I've done? Do you remember the sacrifices I've made? Do you remember the sacrifices I've made within the life of your servant? And in Prabhupada's purport he explains that no, Krishna never forgets. He never forgets the little service that we've done for him. So Prabhupada concluded by saying that if you don't remember Krishna at the time of death, if you cannot say Krishna's names and remember him and his pastimes, then Lord Chaitanya will personally come and enter into the recesses of your mind and drag you back home, back to Godhead. This was his statement. And he was not being frivolous in this point. He has often said that if you sincerely work each day under the guidance of the spiritual master and the acharyas, and assist Lord Chaitanya in spreading the Sankirtan movement, then there's every guarantee within this life of going back home, back to Godhead. So, as much as we should not underestimate the power and potency of the three modes of material nature, the ocean of material nescience, in the same way we should not undermine the power and the potency, the influence of the pure devotees, the acharyas. It is explained also in one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam that that by taking bath in Mother Ganga, we can purify ourselves, but that has to be done over a long period of time. Over a long period of time, then some purification has taken place. But one moment's association with a pure devotee, then that same effect can be given to any sincere devotee who sincerely wishes to cross beyond the ocean of material existence and return back home, back to Godhead. So let us, of course, association with the pure devotees is done in different ways, as personal association, and the instructions are one and the same. The instructions, by following the instructions, we're also associating with the acharyas, by singing, as it's mentioned here, by singing the songs of the previous acharyas, by imbibing their instructions. That is also our association with them. In fact, Prabhupada has also pointed out that if you do something for the spiritual master, then you have the whole disciplic succession behind you in whatever you do. That is why sometimes we do something and we do it somehow effortlessly. We do things which normally are inconceivably impossible. But inconceivably great is Krishna, that he makes it possible that the inconceivable can be perceived and carried out. So let's continue our practices in that mood. It's warning us not to indulge in any mental speculation. As soon as we start speculating, then that protection and that guidance of the disciplic succession is then taken away from us. Bhaktisiddhanta would say, if you start a sentence with "I think," then you should end it end the sentence in the cupboard. End the sentence in a place where no one can hear the rest of the sentence. And he also said that if all the books in the world were destroyed by fire, and there were only Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam remaining, then there would be no loss. Yes, we can also include. I thought it was Bhagavad Gita, but okay. So we'll include all three of them. But there is no doubt about that, that these books have the power and potency to deliver us, and no other books are necessary. So let us be confident with that and continue our service and that association. I don't think there's any time for questions. I'll leave it there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premananda.